Cool Hand Luke, the cast tells fans something they never knew. People have called it the best movie ever about fighting power. A performance that made Paul Newman the most enticing rebel in Hollywood. A story that showed people in America how much it costs to break a man's heart. Keep your cool. Luke, go. For many movie fans, this story of defiance against overwhelming institutional power is one of the most heartbreaking movies ever made. But what if I told you that there are thousands of hidden stories beneath the surface that not even the biggest fans have found? The curtain is being pulled back on Cool Hand Luke's best-kept secrets today. New information from the actors and crew who acted in this well-known story. The movie's hidden meanings, the big reveal at the beginning, and the symbolic details that are placed all over it totally change how you understand Luke Jackson's journey. From Newman's shocking admissions about his relationship with Luke to George Kennedy's dramatic change for his Oscar-winning part to the scenes that were cut, that would have given the movie a whole new meaning. There is a lot to enjoy. The story of Cool Hand Luke that hasn't been told before. When we're done, I promise you that you'll never look at those mirrored sunglasses or hear the phrase failure to communicate the same way again. The movie that broke Hollywood rules. Before we get into what the cast told us, we need to know something very important. Cool Hand Luke wasn't meant to be the movie it is now. It was meant to be safer, more common, and much easier to get permission for. Warner Brothers at first thought of the project as a simple prison story that would be fun to watch but not memorable. What they didn't expect was for director Stuart Rosenberg to want to make something much more dangerous. Rosenberg and screenwriter Frank Pearson wanted to make a movie that would make people think about not only prison conditions, but also the whole system of power in the United States during the height of the Vietnam War. Jack Lemmon used to own the rights to the book, but he sold them when he realized he wasn't cut out to play the lead. The project got the star power it needed to break new ground when Paul Newman joined. He was already known for supporting the underground, so he saw right away that the movie could be used to make a point about the growing gap between generations in America. Studio executives were not happy with the script's more direct attacks on authority. Rosenberg and Newman came up with a great plan and reaction. They would make their anti-establishment movie look more normal on the outside while hiding more important messages inside. The studio leaders missed the deeper criticisms that were right in front of them because they were too focused on the simple story of the jail escape. As Newman thought about it later, but everyone knew that there was a fundamental conflict between the person and the organization. This rejection of Hollywood's usual plots paved the way for one of the most important movies of its time. A prison drama that seemed easy but had a revolutionary message about how the human spirit won't be broken by systems of control. The real life in prison, the choice to shoot in harsh, realistic conditions, was one of the most important parts of giving the movie an authentic feel. Instead, it was mostly filmed in the sweltering Central Valley and San Joaquin River Delta regions of California. The violent scenes with the chain gang weren't just acting. They were filmed in over 100-degree heat, with the actors doing real work. The production crew built a makeshift jail camp in Stockton, California, with the goal of making it as uncomfortable and limiting as possible. In his autobiography, George Kennedy, who won an Oscar for his part as Dragline, wrote that the conditions changed the performances in a big way. In that unbearably hot weather, we were really out there breaking rocks and paving roads. You didn't have to act tired, burnt, or dirty after a few days. You were already those things. It made the movie seem more real than it was. The jail uniforms made it feel more real. They were made of heavy, stiff denim that got stiff from sweat and dirt. It was told to the wardrobe staff not to clean them often, so they got real dirt and smells on them. To keep things consistent and real, Newman demanded that his uniform not be washed during filming. Paul Newman, who was already known for how hard he worked at his job, pushed himself to the limits during filming. Newman did the real work in scenes where Luke is punished by having to repeatedly dig a hole and then fill it back in. The physical toll of these scenes could be seen on screen, making the figures even more worn out. The physical challenges had an unexpected effect. They brought the group closer together. The actors who played prisoners were grouped together against the weather, which was similar to how their characters were grouped together against the jail system. They would often keep hanging out together after shooting was over for the day. This is how they learned the shorthand language and group dynamics that you can see in the prison yard scenes of the movie. Stuart Rosenberg, the director, supported this friendship because he knew it would translate to screen reality. During breaks between takes, he often kept the cameras rolling to catch the players interacting naturally, which made it into the final cut. This method created some of the most natural and interesting group dynamics in the movie. As Lou Antonio and Coco later explained, "We weren't just playing a jail gang. In many ways, we had become one. There was a set order, a running joke, and a way for us to look out for each other. That wasn't in the story, but you see it on the screen. The people who are behind the people. Many viewers don't know that each of the main actors gave their characters long and complicated backstories. Details were used to guide every move and word in the movie, but they were never directly shown. Paul Newman saw Luke Jackson as a lot more than just another bad guy when he talked to him. In an interview about his process, he talked about how he carefully built Luke's past, focusing on his time in the service. He served in the war and got honors. But when he came back, people didn't accept the person the war had made him. This military past, which was only briefly shown in the movie, was very important to Newman's understanding of the character. Luke's refusal to follow the rules wasn't just because he was stubborn. It was because he had seen how pointless death and pain were in war. So what did breaking the parking meter matter after that? Newman added subtle military etiquette to his act. How Luke stands at attention when he first talks to the captain, how carefully he makes beds, and how he can handle being hit. For his part as dragline, George Kennedy may have gone through the most dramatic changes. Kennedy had to imagine himself fully as the prison yard's alpha male with a surprising lack of strength. He was usually known for playing tough military men and authority figures, actually put on weight for the part, and studied how Southern prisoners behave. The most important thing he did was make a detailed account of Dragline's crimes and time in jail before Luke got there. As Kennedy wrote in his book, "I decided Dragline had been in that prison for 12 years. He began as just another new fish, but he fought his way to the top of the prisoner order, and now thought of himself as a kind of good king." Luke was the first man to really test not only his strength, but also his whole being. Morgan Woodward's training for the role of Godfrey, the boss who wears sunglasses and is silent, may be the most interesting part. Woodward used to be chatty and friendly, but before a movie shoot, he would shut himself away for an hour and not talk to anyone. During the whole production, he purposely stayed away from the players who played prisoners and never hung out with them between takes. These choices about characters show how the actors give their parts complex, psychological depth that changed cool hands. Luke went from being a simple prison story to a deep look at power, resistance, and human worth. What most fans miss about the holy meanings. Keep your cool. Luke is full of Christian symbols that many people, even die-hard fans, miss the first few times they watch it. The actors and crew have confirmed that these religious parallels were purposely used in the movie. The most clear picture of Christ is when Luke, having eaten 50 eggs, lies on the table with his arms stretched out in a crucifixion position. But this is only the most obvious of many such parallels. Stuart Rosenberg, the director, carefully put together a visual story that connects Luke's journey with Jesus Christ's. Rosenberg studied religion before becoming a director. Luke's mother, played by Jovan Fleet, visits him. She sits on top of her truck like a Madonna, and he stands below her, which is meant to look like Michelangelo's Pieta. The cigarettes she gives Luke make a halo of smoke around him, which changes the way he looks for a short time. Her last words, "You know you're never coming back from this road," foreshadowed his sacrifice, just as Mary knew what would happen to Jesus. A baptism takes place in the famous scene where Luke washes Joy Harmon's car and sprays her with water while making jokes about it. The scene looks like a dream because it was shot with different lighting and pacing than the rest of the movie. This shows that it is symbolic rather than real. As Luke baptizes them, it's a time for the prisoners to become spiritually awake. In the movie, Luke is punished over and over for disobeying authority, just like Christ was. The scene where he is brought back after his first attempt to flee, broken and beaten, is a direct copy of Christ's return after being tortured. Luke's famous line, "I ain't beat yet," is a reflection of how Christ kept going even though he was hurting. In the last few minutes of the movie, the most powerful sacred images happen. Luke's friend Dragline says that after he died, Luke was happy, which suggests that he had won in a way that was beyond his body. In the last picture, Luke's smiling face is superimposed on a crossroads that was taken in a way that makes it look like a crucifix. It's easy to understand. And Luke has been killed just like Christ, but he has spiritually won over the system that killed him. Even though Paul Newman was Jewish, he looked at these Christian ideas from a universal point of view. He once said that the use of religious images wasn't meant to promote Christianity in particular. Was about using a story that most Americans know to talk about sacrifice, about how one person goes through pain to inspire others. Luke is made into a sacrifice, and his spirit lives on after his body is killed. Later, screenwriter Frank Pearson revealed that this was the plan. When people question systems of power, they are brutally put down. This article talks about how the human spirit can rise above that suppression. The bad guys can kill Luke, but they can't kill what the other inmates see in him. Luke's famous line, "Nobody can eat 50 eggs," takes on a whole new meaning with this carefully thought-out message. The challenge isn't just a bed in the prison yard. It turns into a kind of Last Supper, a way for the prisoners to get to know each other, and for Luke to rise from being a troublemaker to a spiritual leader. The political comment that is hidden. When it comes to jail dramas, Cool Hand Luke is great as a character study. It was also a political comment about the United States during the Vietnam War. When the movie came out in theaters in 1967, it was during the height of anti-war protests and a time when people were talking a lot about institutional power. Luke's background as a decorated war hero who comes home and is jailed for a small crime made a direct comment on how Vietnam veterans are treated. Like a lot of real soldiers, Luke had been praised for being violent in battle, but punished for much smaller offenses in everyday life. After seeing how chaotic war was, he couldn't accept arbitrary authority. This showed how many veterans were losing hope. In a way, the prison camp setting of the movie was like a miniature version of modern America. The chiefs and bosses stood for the government, and the prisoners represented regular people whose freedoms were being taken away more and more. Frank Pearson, the screenwriter, said in later comments that we were wondering what kind of society sends men to war to die, and then throws them away when they come back changed. His lack of reaction to violence was similar to how many protesters felt about police and military activities against civilians. The fact that he never talks while giving punishments says that he follows the rules without thinking about what is right or wrong.